A local reporter texted me on Thursday night, as I'm going into my hotel room, about 11 o'clock, that I sure picked a fine meeting to miss. So I took the opportunity, and I'm grateful that we have local community access television, because it gave me the opportunity to review the meeting. And so I'd like to discuss some of the issues that were raised relative to trees and drainage. Let's start with trees. One of the first challenges that was presented to me 2 years ago when I arrived here was the problems we have with downtown trees. And so I consulted with the Extension Center, as I understand did Darren. I met with an acquaintance of mine who's a certified arborist, and I talked to some city administrators around this area, because we all have the same climate, to see how everybody else is dealing with this issue, if they are dealing with it. The conclusion of that is that there's no perfect tree. It's just pick one. And there's one reason or another why it will or will not do well in any given environment. We, as you know, and has been confirmed with my observation of the holes that are being dug around town this week, we have in the downtown area compacted soils that don't hold water well, and are mixed with a lot of stuff that isn't natural. Well, I don't say natural, but it's not, it's not dirt. It's sand and gravel, and over the years, that's what's there. So I started with this investigation, and the two things: you have soil type and you have environment. So we have compacted urban soils in an urban downtown environment. The key to, I'm told, to any tree growing is roots and irrigation. So you have to have a big enough zone for the roots to establish, and it has to be properly irrigated. So you have to keep it open largely enough in order for all of that to work together. And the first thing I handed out to you, which has the highlight, shows you the recommendation is 2 feet along the side of a square, based on it's like 2.5 times the anticipated trunk size. And that's the area you're supposed to have for the roots to grow, and then you have to allow the water to get into the soil. On Main Street, you will observe that was pretty well done. I mean, there's large areas, and they have pretty good infiltration zones for those trees. But in the other parts of downtown, we don't have that condition. So we can't achieve what's recommended and maintain sidewalks that are passable and meet ADA compliance without basically having a grate system that covers almost the entire sidewalk. The minimum for ADA is 3 feet. So the next question was what trees do well in compacted soils with the kind of environment that we have? That's the ginkgo tree. Now, what's the problem with the ginkgo tree? Well, they're very slow growing. That was discussed. They get too big over time, and that was discussed at the meeting, all of which is true. You were not given any misinformation about the ginkgo tree. The 3-leaf maple was not mentioned to me by either the Extension Service or the arborist. The reason is that it's a relatively new cultivated species that 2 years ago nobody was talking about. Today they are talking about it. But there is no experience with that particular species in the environment that we have. Again, compacted soils, urban environment, nobody quite knows. But with the ginkgo tree, because it performs well in areas and you can read that for yourself, ginkgos adapt well to the urban environment, tolerating pollution and confined soil spaces. That's what we have. They rarely suffer disease problems, even in urban conditions, and are attacked by few insects. So the ginkgos seem to be the tree for those areas in the downtown area, those spots in the downtown area where creating that larger root system zone and infiltration zone are impractical, if not impossible. With the knowledge that it ain't going to grow very fast. And when it does start to grow, it's going to achieve heights that are going to require it to be replaced at some point. The issue there is that you got to make sure you get the male ginkgo, because the female have these stinky pods. But the nurseries know how to provide you with what you order. So you order male ginkgos, you get male ginkgos. So it was for that reason, in the environments where we have problems, obvious problems of the roots coming up and narrow sidewalks, that I chose the ginkgo tree as being the appropriate tree for the whole. And I talked to Darren today about it, and he, well, there's nothing wrong with that, which is not quite what I heard from the meeting. I have an email from Dave who, upon receiving this information, said, well, it looks like that was the right decision. So I'm thinking that unless we want to experiment with the three-leaf maple, which is a prettier tree, or bush maybe, I'm not sure it gets up to be a tree, but I haven't changed my mind about my recommendation to you, if you want street trees. Yes, sir.
Myself, I would like to see a nice decorative bush, and if we want shade, why don't we got craftsmen all over here in town that can make canopies for some of them benches, if they want shade, to sit and relax. I mean, we keep spending money on top of money on these trees, fixing the sidewalks, replacing trees.
Mr. Administrator, you're wrong about Main Street, but the grates. This was taken in front of Bill Smelsley's old barber shop. I know, John, you know where it is. That grate's lifted. That's a tripper there. And if you want to plant trees in this town, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have a damn lawsuit on your hand, because this happened right over here in front of the grade school. There wasn't no marquee that said watch your step like some of these other pictures, and you can look at some of them. You're looking for a lawsuit waiting to happen. That is lifted there, Carl, and it's a tripper there. And how many people other than me have fallen in town?
Those are plastic too, aren't they?
That's a metal grate.
That's metal?
So
There's where I fell, and you can see how thick it is, because I took this piece of mortar that's laying on the ground there and stuck it there. I damn near lost my little finger. If it wouldn't have been for a tendon holding it on there, this is what it looked like on my little finger. I got a cut here, bruise there, bruise on both my palms, elbow, shoulder. Was I clumsy? No.
I'd say
But you're waiting for a lawsuit to happen.
You go all in to prove a point. I agree with you.
Well, maybe sometime an alderman has
Yeah,
to
yeah, certainly,
take a beating
I don't
for
appreciate you raising your voice.
Well, I'm damn mad about it. I'm a
I had nothing to
citizen.
do with it.
I'm a citizen, I'm a taxpayer, and I'm an alderman.
Take care
And
of it.
I'm telling you.
Take care of it,
All
then.
right,
Hey,
put
hey,
it,
Gentlemen,
put
gentlemen,
your trees in.
gentlemen.
Hey, why are we yelling at each other?
Well, I'm getting yelled at in my ear here, and I don't
Well,
appreciate
maybe you're
that.
hard hearing.
I am hard hearing, but I can hear that very well.
surgery.
Well, you gotta be careful a little bit
Oh,
around
yeah.
dangerous areas, I'll tell
Do
you.
you walk with
Hey,
your
And we
head
have been
down?
working on
Hey, this
fixing
ain't
this
doing any
stuff.
good.
Well, if we both put trees in, I hope somebody sues us, because I'm sure the hell not voting for it.
You just said, hope somebody sues the city.
You did.
What about
Please,
this-
please,
What about your
please,
oath you took?
Please
Jeez.
review your
What
professionalism.
about what?
The oath you took.
Why?
Read it.
Why?
I didn't say I was suing.
But you said
How many
you
people-
hope
I
somebody
heard that.
did.
How many other people have fallen that have never said nothing?
All right, hey.
You want to talk to somebody?
Hey, Donnie, this isn't doing any good. This isn't getting us anywhere.
I want him to listen to
No,
somebody
he-
that.
I heard it, buddy, I heard it.
No, forget it.
No,
he's
he
not
don't
gonna
know
talk
about this guy. This guy didn't report it.
Well,
That's all right.
okay,
Yeah.
we know.
We need to decide
We
whether
know.
we want.
We know
We
people
put
have
trees
fallen.
back
We
in
know we've
and
got some
Everybody
issues.
wants trees.
Well,
We know we've got some issues.
We've known it for years.
Hey, if you
Yeah.
would have been on the, Donnie, if you would have been on the board when we did do Main Street, and we did talk about not putting trees on Main Street, and we had all of Main Street sitting here, and they said, we gotta have trees on Main Street.
there you got light poles there that's got tripping hazards.
Well, I'm not saying everything's
Travel other
perfect.
towns and cities.
Well, here, that's in front of your place, a little bitty tree. You can see where the concrete's already.
There's no question we've got issues. That's what we're here to talk about.
Well, if we put trees in, we're fools, and I'm not voting for it.
Oh, okay, well,
Well,
that's one opinion.
I
There's-
took an
there's
unexpected
7 other
fall
ones
that I
sitting.
didn't really want to be. I didn't want to spend all day in the hospital
I-
yesterday, and
I'm
I
sure
damn near
nobody
lost my
wants
little
to.
finger.
Nobody wants to,
Well.
and nobody wants anybody to fall. Is the grate raised on Main Street because of the tree?
I don't know, it's raised.
I don't
Okay.
think it would raise on its own, Mayor.
They wore up those plastic, are these a metal one?
This is
I don't
another
know, but I
one.
don't think they raise on their own. I mean, it's like a tire going flat. It goes flat for a reason.
It's a metal grate because I kicked it, and it is a tripping. It sticks up to where you can trip.
We
I just think we
follow-
need to halt the trees until we fully explore. I mean, there's a lot of things I would like, but it's not beneficial. I mean, whatever, the people downtown want to, I think we need to explore more in the canopies over.
Well, I will tell you,
over the
not every
benches.
downtown shop owner wants the tree in front of their shop. We've had a couple ask that we remove them. So this is not a black and white issue. It's just a policy decision that we have to make and decide what route we want to go. You know, we know there are some places that we need to repair because, as it's been pointed out, they're trip hazards. There are, as Dave reported at the meeting, last meeting, there are 17 trees that are heaving sidewalks. That we would.
There's more than that.
Yeah, I'm sure there are, but those are the 17 they've identified as trip hazards, and you know, what's a trip hazard? I've stumbled here, I've stubbed my toe on uneven sidewalks.
But what's it gonna take somebody to have brain damage, a severe head injury, a broken hip, a broken, Shoulder?
We could eliminate the whole idea, we could forget about the ginkgo trees. If you want to vote to eliminate all the trees downtown, then vote
well, I
to
make
do
a
it.
motion, we eliminate them and go with flowers.
Is the.
I think that's a good idea. Let's just, right now,
Are you-
decide for
Are
everybody.
you also saying that we should be taking care of the flowers? I mean, is that the city's, should be the Parks Department or the Public Works Department's responsibility to
You
take
could
care of
probably
the
have some of
flowers?
the Girl Scouts do it. They do there in front of the city shed, they do there in front of the Catholic Church. Individuals do that.
Well,
Well, I think if you eliminate trees, you might as well not even put anything in them holes, I don't think. I mean, make it a sidewalk again. I don't think there ought to be anything in the sidewalk. I mean, if you wanna go that route, you ain't gonna run into the tree by walking. I mean, if you can see, you might trip as Donnie did, but the tree is high. You put little bushes there or something, you might have them tripping over them and the flowers or whatever. So if we eliminate trees, I say make it just sidewalk.
Well, the flowers aren't gonna push the sidewalks out.
No, but I'm just saying,
Maybe we can explore canopies on the benches or something.
maybe.
I don't know. Somebody wants shade.
Well, there's people use that thing down there by the station
Gazebo?
too all the time.
The arbor.
Yeah, or the pergola.
Yeah. That's neat sitting in there. I've did it before. I've done it.
Mhm.
Well, let me take it a step further. If you're talking about this, brought one up on Main Street, do we eliminate the trees on Main Street?
Well, you don't have to, I think, wouldn't
You
you?
want to tear all them out?
You got the
I guess
grates
we could
pushed
do
up
that.
on every one of them downtown,
Do
on
that.
Main Street.
Every
I
one of
just
them?
showed you a picture of it, yeah, go down there after the meeting. I showed you the one in front of Bill Smelsley's, or in front of the pet store and everywhere, they're raised. Maybe not as much as some of them, but they're still raised to where it's still a tripping hazard. And as those trees get bigger, it's only gonna push the sidewalks up. So do we eliminate it now, or do we eliminate it 5 years from now?
You guys.
Well, it could be.
I mean, we certainly had a lot of debate over the trees on Main Street whenever we put them in there.
Yeah, we did.
And they were supposed to be put in according to all the standards and the way they were supposed to grow and the roots were supposed to go and the type of trees that they were. And that may never, there may not be such a tree out there that does that. And I don't know. And that's only been 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Ain't been long.
So you can vote right now and they can start taking them all out tomorrow.
I
and
think we
fill
should
in
wait
the
till
holes.
everybody's here. Can't make a vote when 4 or 5 are here
No,
and
we
3's
can't
missing.
vote, we can't
Wouldn't
vote
be
now
fair.
anyway. But I sure would not want to do that tonight and start tearing them out tomorrow, because I think you're gonna have a whole room full of people here. That's
Well,
just
we
my
should
opinion.
have. I think it'd be good to have them here, myself.
So, Mr. Toma's recommendation is if we put back trees, we put the ginkgo tree back in. I looked at a few places, if I had to suggest anything, and it certainly doesn't work with all of them, it only works with a few of them, maybe down by the post office, and I know we did do it in some cases where we could on the whole project, or they did back in 1985, was that if there was a yard or something in back of the sidewalk, they tried to put the trees back in that yard. Now, in that one in case down by the post office, that's really not a good place, because since that tree's been there, they put that ramp and it kind of comes out right there. But there is a yard right there that they could possibly put a tree. We could maybe get permission to put a tree in that yard that would be back far enough. We might not have the issue with the sidewalk. I don't know if we would or not, but it would eliminate it out of the sidewalk. There was certainly some put in the rectory yard and Citizens Electric when that project was done, and I don't know if we're having those issues with the sidewalks in those areas. Courthouse is another one. Matter of fact, I believe when we talked to them about not putting the trees back in there, we asked them if they would put some trees back in the courthouse yard. That hasn't happened yet, and I don't know if that's just, we just need to talk some more maybe about that. Maybe they're not interested in doing it, but I think there was some talk about putting some trees back in that yard instead of putting them out on the sidewalk. Certainly on the other side of the street where the Herald is and along there, you don't have that opportunity, but in some cases we do, and could still create some shade on the sidewalks and a nice streetscape, and maybe not have the issues with the sidewalk. But again, you can't do that everywhere.
Well, Citizens used to have a couple and they took them out. Remember those trees?
Down the yard.
Yeah, they were in the yard and I don't know if there was an issue with the leaves or limbs or whatever, but they got rid of them. They were nice. I don't know what happened to them.
Somebody told me they got a disease.
I was wondering about that, yeah. That was the issue. I think they were non-thorny locusts or something. I think they
Well, you have trees because there's some thought that the urban landscape benefits from the presence of the trees, that it creates a more attractive environment to people who come downtown. But clearly, it's a problem, a management problem.
Safety,
Well, it does
We
create
can't keep ahead of it on the
issues.
sidewalks, though.
yeah.
We've got sidewalks everywhere in town that's falling apart, and you can't tend to them, tending to the downtown.
Yeah, it's a kind of a double-edged sword, you know, if indeed these trees are part of the reason people want to come downtown, and they create an unsafe environment for those very same people.
Yeah.
A hearing, a tree hearing,
Yeah, I think so.
advertise it, and
I think so.
we can present what we know about the benefits and pitfalls and hear from the folks who want to come talk about it.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we've got a couple of critical areas.
We need to address anything that is a hazard.
Well,
Who's responsible for the sidewalks, like in front of the business? The business pays part of it,
yeah,
the city
I
pays part of it?
consulted with the city attorney on that issue because it was raised by the insurance company. We already have a lawsuit, and so the question was who's responsible for it. He says that despite where the property boundary is, that the city is responsible for the public thoroughfares, and that there may also be some liability on the part of the adjacent property owner, but he said there's no way we'd win the argument that sidewalks that we install and maintain aren't something for which we are responsible.
You aren't responsible?
We are responsible.
Oh. So if I put a sidewalk in front of my house, you're responsible?
His statement today was that if you put a sidewalk in front of your house, the city will have some responsibility.
So before we can, I mean, if we want to get the public participation, which I really think we ought to, on this, but we do have certainly some cases that need to be addressed. What do we want to do on those? I mean, because obviously as soon as we could have it would be next week to get some kind of input from them, and then you have to make your decision. But we've got those cases where we really need
I
to
think
do something.
sidewalks need to get started fixing. It's critical downtown.
Well, the only thought I have is like this one out here just outside the Union Hall. It seems that's a bad area. If we tear it out and replace the concrete, we kind of lost the opportunity to plant a tree there. Because even if we left the opening that's there now, it wouldn't be sufficient to create a hole for the tree that you're going to put in there. So you almost have to do it while you have the concrete removed and then pour it back.
Well, you got-
That's okay. I mean, in those instances, then we just know we're not going to be able to replace a tree there. We'll just go ahead and fix the sidewalk and make it passable.
I think so. We got the one down by the post office, that needs to be, and it, you shouldn't have one there, actually, I don't think. Not at that location. There by the ramp. Right.
Yeah, that's,
Ain't enough room.
no, there's not enough room.
No. I mean, there's, I don't know how many are critical, but
Criticality is, I mean, obviously, the one you don't fix because it wasn't as bad as the one you did fix, is
Right.
the next one somebody's going to trip over.
yeah.
Right.
Where was that at? I don't even understand where you.
Right over here by the parish rectory, the
Oh,
basement, between the
Bourbon-
rectory and the school. That first tree there, across from Smelsley's Barber Shop, on the church side,
Oh.
on Market
yeah.
Street.
Oh, you're talking about between Fourth and Dewberg,
Yeah,
in that block right there?
yeah. Where they can park a couple cars
Yeah,
there.
right.
Do we have any ginkgo trees planted right now? Yes. Where are they? Do you know where one is? It's maybe been
There
there.
are two right here around the courthouse square, and then there's one down,
In front of the old jail, I guess, is where they put them.
yeah, that's
Okay.
one,
Third Street?
on Third Street. There's one here on the market, and then there's one down on Main Street across from Station 2.
I guess there's no such thing as putting steel boxes down in there. The roots gotta keep going, huh?
Bigger, you can create a root box, and basically what you do with that is when you have soils, you don't have any soils that'll work. You create a root box and you fill it with, you import the material you need for the tree to grow. It's still containing it though, and you still have to have the infiltration zone. So it's going to be a bigger box than some of our sidewalks would accommodate.
Did we not do that on Main Street? Didn't those go in a,
They're bigger.
they're bigger, but I thought they're
No.
contained.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
No.
I thought they were, I thought.
And I thought they were
were
like
bigger
fiberglass screens too, which I
No,
didn't.
those are steel.
Are they?
Yeah, that was one of the things, because those ones around the courthouse are not very, they're not near what the ones on Main Street are. And that was one of the reasons we went with the heavier ones down there, because the ones on Third Street do raise.
Well, like I said earlier, I don't know, 6, 7, 5 years ago, we talked to the Missouri Extension about this, and this is a tree they recommended. They said the roots grow straight up and down. My experience on the board is that people want those trees. That's my experience. That's all I've got to say.
All right, so my sense is that we need to repair the places where because people have been injured, we know we need to do something, because it's negligent to fail to act. We'll not put trees back there in front of the court, the post office and over here. And then we'll have a hearing and make a decision about the larger issue in the next week or so. Okay, good, thank you.
One more thing. Dave has been working on this problem. It's ongoing with him.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Well, he is.
It's ongoing every year.
You know, and we don't really budget anything for sidewalk repair. And, you know, the trees are $100 a piece, and the labor, you know, and the concrete's so much. It's $1,000 job minimum for every one we replace just the way it is.
Well, basically what I'm saying is we are not sitting stagnant doing absolutely nothing about it.
I think that's true.
Okay.
You know, and if, I guess certainly another way to look at it is those were, and we've been dealing with this issue for the last 6, 7, 8 years. But,
Before that.
Yeah.
you know, a lot more so though, but,
Yeah.
you know, those sidewalks were put in 85. If you're willing to, as a board, accept the fact that every 20 years, you're gonna start replacing sidewalks. If that's what you wanna do. I mean, if you're gonna live with the trees, then you're gonna live with having to replace sidewalks.
Right, and it's hard to tell these people that's walking and jogging and everything elsewhere other than the downtown that we don't have the money for the sidewalks there, because we keep dumping it downtown where the tourists are. I mean, I get complaints every week about, you know, all the rest of the town, how bad the sidewalks are.
Yeah, we're soon going to get a report from SEMO Regional Planning on the condition of our sidewalks. They've done a feet on the street survey as part of a grant that they got, and so we're going to get the information. And the reason it's important for them to provide it to us is if we're going to get any assistance for sidewalk replacement, and having it be part of the regional study is an important step. So.
Would
The
there be
worst
any money?
worst sidewalk in town is between the railroad tracks and Serapin. That's a V shape. You get the both schools cross-country teams running, and they're running out in the street because that is actually a V.
Is there any
it's
grants
been
for
like
new
that for
sidewalks too, or not?
50
While we're
years,
doing
because
it?
I walked to
There
school.
aren't right now, but there aren't right
No,
now.
I mean, with that
Lawsuit
grant
waiting to happen, but if
Chauncey or
she's
whoever's talking about.
responsible,
Well, they got the grant to do the study.
Oh, but they're gonna see if there's any grants down the
Now,
road for
the study will
replacement.
position every city that they've studied to go if funds are available through some source, say, here, the reason we're doing this area is it was studied and was evaluated, so that they know it wasn't just arbitrary, and it's,
Yeah.
and it's done by someone other than us, which gives it an element of objectivity. All right, the second thing that happened was Ms. Akins appeared and talked about her problems. She didn't say anything that wasn't true. I want to argue, not argue, I want to talk
Debate.
about the characterization of my
Debate.
comments. I didn't purposefully lie to Ms. Akins at any point in time. I wouldn't have any motivation to do that. She called me and told me about drains that used to be evident at the corners of her house. And she was concerned about the fact that they were no longer there and what was going to happen to the water when the sidewalks got built. So I contacted Dave and I said, I met with Marcia and she expressed concerns about these things, and I told her we would make sure that her concerns were addressed. Since it's across the street from your shop, would you monitor the progress here? And when this work starts taking place, let's observe and see if they find those drains so we can make sure they get reconnected. Well, for whatever reason, that did not occur. So when it became obvious to us that either they didn't find the drains, and the engineer says, every time they found something, they called me. And he doesn't recall, he didn't get a call on those drains. We went out, John expressed concern about it to me. We called the engineer out here. We stood there, and he said, every place that you've got this drainage issue here, we're going to put in these C channels to keep the water from ponding behind the sidewalk and to drain out. I reported that to everybody. That didn't happen.
Who was at fault on the C channels? Because you told me they were going to put them in, and they didn't put them in.
Good question.
I mean,
Joe says, I called the contractor and told him that they needed to be put in to hold off until they get in, and then he didn't do it. The mayor informed me today that he thinks that the sidewalk got poured before that phone call got made. I don't know. I know that the day before I left, I sent an email to Joe saying the conditions that exist for Ms. Akins are unacceptable and that we need to do something to resolve this issue. And he was going to come down on Monday morning and analyze it, and we were going to do something to resolve the issue. I told Ms. Akins that one of the things we may end up doing is putting in a drain on the house side of the curb and connecting it into the box. The contractor built what was on the plans. To do something else was going to be an extra, whether the contractor performed the work or we performed the work. It wasn't going to be included in what was done. He performed under his contract. So, in my absence, the mayor met with her the following, I guess you went out there Monday or Friday. And he reports to me that they think that she's satisfied with the resolution of the issue. So she's clearly unhappy with the way it was handled. And honestly, I don't blame her. Because what I thought was going to happen didn't happen. But it wasn't for lack of attention. We did pay attention to it. It just, something got screwed up along the way. She's going to be taken care of, as she should be, because the problem she has is not imaginary. I mean, it's a real problem. And they're going to notch the sidewalk and allow the drainage and keep it consistent with the ADA requirements. That's my understanding. And do some guttering work for her to make sure the water gets away from her house.
One of the things that I will say, one of the fixes that was going to take place, the C channels, were part of the change order that we tabled last week.
but nobody knew what was going on. The left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing.
Well, obviously
I
the
mean, if
engineer
somebody would
did.
have left a note or explained what the change order was.
I mean, say the engineer at that point was taking some steps to correct it. He put three C channels in,
But the sidewalk was already poured.
but yeah.
Well, but the
On the
one up
one.
by Don Bach wasn't poured until this week, and they never put a C channel in there, so I don't know what happened there. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing there either, because we're gonna have the same problem up there.
Okay, is that not where the third one is?
Well, they just poured that this week. The other one might have been poured. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt by Mr. Steigers and Akins, that was done already poured, but the rest of them, it wasn't poured yet, and they still don't have C channels in
The
them.
inspector will be down here tomorrow morning, and we're.
First three were poor, Steigers, Marshall's, and gentleman that was here.
Piece, Willamette, a piece of it.
Okay, yeah.
Well, the best that I could tell, the one, when Joe said he made the phone call for them to hold off and to talk to him about it, that sidewalk was already there, and that's the one on this side of Aiken's house.
Right.
Now, they left a gap on the other side where the other one was supposed to go. And then when him and I were there, we walked up the street, and I'm not sure if it's exactly where you're talking about, but there was another spot up there, and I said, what about here? And he said, there's one going in here, and it was a house or two away from where that is. He said, there's another one going in here. And that was just on Monday, Friday, that was Friday when we talked about that. So, that other one never got in there. I don't know.
When you talk about Joe, you're talking about Joe Gable, the
Yes,
engineer.
yes.
The other thing that we gotta figure out is I've gotten a couple of calls from people who say, I never had water in my basement, now I do, what's going on? I wonder if some of these basement drains were tied into that old storm sewer. And again, in conversation with the Clifton and Gable, they say, well, we didn't find anything. I mean, when I found it, I reported it. But when you're digging with the backhoe, the little drain pipe is not something you're gonna necessarily see or feel. So I'm curious. So I think what we'll end up having to do is put some snakes down these drains and see how far out of the house they get and try and figure out what happened there. There are a couple of them that I think need to have that done. The other problem is that concrete pipe, and that's on your agenda tonight, that the old pipe next to Miss Ross' house. The idea that the plans called for capping that pipe at both ends. And that was done. But somewhere, there's water getting into it, and nobody knows where. I mean, we don't know if there's water piped into it from a drain up the hill, because that pipe was never taken out. So even though it's capped, and there should be no water flowing into it from the natural flow, there's water getting in there, and it's more water than you would expect to be seeping in from groundwater. And it's causing them to have a problem. So right now we've got a sump pump down in that hole, an electric one, to keep it pumped out in case we get any significant rains tonight and tomorrow. But the question is, do we need to take that pipe out? One of the options was to fill it with flowable fill, and that sounds like a good idea, except if the reason that it's filling up is there's some kind of drainage into it. Pouring grout is just going to seal off whatever's feeding it, and we're going to have a problem on somebody else's house. So I don't know that that flowable fill option, given the evidence that we have, is going to work. I think it might just create another problem. So I think the most viable option, and the one that everyone involved could live with, even though it's the most expensive one, will be to take that out. Now that $10,000 item is a big item, and it's one of the reasons why I wouldn't approve it without bringing it to your attention. But we're still so far under our budget for that project that we can afford to do it without causing problems on that line item, because the bid was so favorable. We were $70,000 less than we expected. So we got room in the budget to do that if we need to. Okay. Next. 3 weeks ago, this letter showed up on my chair. It was addressed to Mayor Grimminger and the Board of Aldermen from Chief Mick Swint. I thought it was my copy. I read it, I didn't realize that the expectation was that I would then distribute it to everybody, and I did not. So that is why it was not before you at our last meeting, and I apologize for that. It's my misunderstanding. I thought I was getting a copy of a letter that had already been distributed to you. So we took it off my desk and made copies and distributed it to you. We invited Nick to be here tonight. He said he had other obligations, so he couldn't be here. I don't have anything to add to it. I don't know what you want to discuss about it.
I don't know if there's any discussions about it. I think we all knew what was going to happen if things went the way they did, and that's where we're at, and we either need to, if we want to replace that particular piece of equipment, then we need to figure out a way to find the money. If we don't, we live with what we've got.
I guess I disagree with that, Mayor, because if it would have been a yes vote, it'd probably been a minimum of a year before we'd got a new fire truck. So what would the game plan been? Would they still have taken it out of service, or would they have kept using it for that year if the yes vote would have went through? And then secondly, why can't we just take a cutting torch or a sawzall and cut the ladder off of it and just use it as a pumper? I mean, it
Well,
says here,
the pump, I don't think is even adequate.
Last I
It
heard,
fails
the
it
pump
fails the
didn't-
pump test also.
failed the pump test.
Yeah.
I just think the next step is we need to, I've been approached by probably at least 6 people that would like to be on a committee and study what do we really need. And they're business people here in town in the automotive line. And I told them to call and talk to you and tell
Do
them.
you think they're more qualified to determine what we need as far as fire protection as automotive people than our fire department is?
They said they would like to study the truck and the whole scenario.
Not whether the city needs a ladder truck, but whether
We need, do
How
we need a fire truck? Do we need a ladder truck? What, everything? Do
Okay,
we
so
need
that
to
is what
look
they'd
into
like to look at.
repairing, you know?
So you are saying
we
that
need
they
a
feel
truck.
more qualified than our fire department does?
Well, some of these are in the automotive line, so yes, I would think that someone would be qualified, Mayor.
What's the automotive line got to do with fire protection? That's like
The
saying.
truck. I mean, I realize the safety issue of the ladder, but they would like to look into some of it. I mean, what comments are, it's only got X amount of miles and the motor's shot and different things. It just,
Well, it's 31 years old for one thing. That's a big consideration there. And the ladder is not, it's not safe to use.
Do we
The
get
truck
this-
itself needs, the frame is cracked.
Do we
You know,
get,
all that stuff was in those different.
I mean, and yes, I would assume that
documents
they
we
would have
got.
taken it out of service. If it was a hazard, then whether there was one on order or not, it should have been taken out of service.
do we have historic license plates on that truck?
maybe we need to.
Well, I'm sure some of those old ones back when I was a kid, I know one of them's still in service, so.
Well, you're
And
talking
another
about
thing here on
a
this
small
page,
community somewhere.
page 2, well, yeah, I realize that, but it's still in service. Bottom of page 2, it says these, under the 2013 scenario score, these changes lower the community score to 58.72. This scenario was conducted under the assumption that no other changes have occurred since 2007. It is possible that the score could be lower or higher. Can you explain the scenario was conducted under the assumption that no other changes? Why doesn't it say the scenario was conducted that no other changes have occurred since 2007? It says under the assumption.
Well,
they didn't come back down and re-inspect. They're relying on their 2007 inspection, and they factored out the ladder trucks from that inspection.
Yeah.
Okay.
And certainly that would be a question for Mick Swint.
Well, I think he needs to start showing up at these meetings we have.
He
Police
shows up at his
chief.
firefighters meetings. That's where
You
I
know,
want him.
last month we had him
Well,
questions
there was a
about
question
taking
at
it out
the
of service
last
and he
meeting
wasn't here
on
to.
reports. I heard, the statement was, what's the protocol? I think Alderman Couch mentioned it. I don't know. I mean, when I got here, the department heads were reporting once a month. They may attend meetings, but they were only obligated to provide a formal report at our second meeting of the month. But I observed that we weren't getting any information from the fire department. So we talked about it at a meeting, and we agreed that we should get a report from the fire department. Not necessarily require the fire chief to be at the meeting, and we could call him in if we needed to talk to him about something.
Well, all the other department heads are here.
Well,
I mean,
some-
last
sometimes
meeting, we had a question about the
they're
windows.
here
that need to
on
be
the,
replaced.
on the fourth meeting, so they're here at your last meeting, but they aren't necessarily here because their next report isn't due till next meeting. Now,
They don't need to be here every meeting.
They're
just
not
when
here
they
every,
report.
they're not here every week.
No.
Well, the question last meeting was about the windows need to be replaced. Dick said, I can't answer it, I'm not the fire chief.
It's what's your pleasure. I mean, if you wanna have all the department heads here, I agree. I don't think they need to be in every meeting, but if you want,
You should be here at
Did you
least
look
once a
them-
month.
Them windows? Donnie brought up the windows.
I don't think, I've looked at them before. I don't think they were installed correctly.
The what?
I don't think they were installed correctly. They're set right on top of that block. The block's acting like a sponge. It's just sucking that moisture right through that wood, right out the bottom of it.
Have we ever had our city attorney send them a letter? Ask them if they warranty them?
Phone
If you have a building?
I know where
Well,
they
they
are.
were
Sure, it was
Don't
in
we
the-
have
Don't you
an
have questions
inspection on
then?
that stuff when
Sure,
it's
but you don't
finished?
mind.
Yeah,
Weren't
what I
them, windows donated? All the windows donated?
in the click.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be
You don't know what you're
window
talking
warranty
Yeah,
issue,
right.
and they were
You don't,
donated.
you really
Every
don't.
one
I
of them.
think it's the way
Yeah.
the
And
installation.
that's a shame.
Well, we'll see the next election.
Is this, sure, go ahead, Mr. Winger. if it's
I'd
related.
like to make
Yeah,
a
we
comment.
will.
I know that it's not
All right.
kosher to do that.
It's a work session,
I was
we're all
turned
here
down
working.
Once before, but, you know, I've heard a lot about the windows falling apart out there, this cracks here, and what's the matter with going back with the contractor? He's the one that's responsible for this crap that's going on out there. If the windows are falling apart, there's a warranty on them. I worked in a lumberyard where we took care of the public. Whenever something happened with a window, with a door, whatever it was, the manufacturer made good on it, and if the manufacturer didn't make good on it, we made good with it.
Well, on that
I got a
particular-
problem with a lot of the things that's going on out there, and if you're worried about the ISO rating and what it's gonna do with your insurance, why don't you go to State Farm, Laura Edwin or Mr. Francis? They don't use the ISO rating when it comes to setting their insurance rates.
Well,
You know,
well, first of all, we can't tell people who to buy their insurance from. Second of all, the windows were
I didn't say
donated.
that.
The
I said
windows-
you go talk to them.
Okay, we'll go talk to them. But the windows were donated, and that company's out of business, so we're not gonna get anything out of them. Now, we could go back to the contractor. I'm sure there's something in the contract that says how long that that they were to warranty the building for, and we can look at that. I don't know how long that was for.
Okay, let's do it this way. Why don't we do like, fire departments out in the county, Bloomsdale, Ozora, Weingarten, sell, have bake sales. And they do their own work. They don't have a support, they don't have a tax that gonna fund this fire department.
They got fire
I
tanks.
guess you're asking the volunteers in the fire department to do that, or the community to do that, and there's nothing stopping anybody to do that, that's for
You know,
sure.
there's a lot of things I'd like to say, but I wouldn't say it over.
And the second of all, I want to know what the heck we're talking about, all the things that's going wrong at the firehouse. John, I think you brought it up at the last meeting, what's all that's wrong out there? We had to put ice guards on, I remember that.
You
Gutters,
should do that.
we had to repaint it, it only had a half a coat or whatever,
it needed
didn't have enough thickness of paint. It just, it's one thing after another out there, Mayor.
I don't know if it's one thing after another, it's maintenance issues.
You know,
Maintenance
I-
on a 7-year-old building, Mayor, you wouldn't, if you built a building like that, you'd be very unhappy, Mayor, if you spent that kind of money and you gotta keep warranty and stuff. You're in business. I'm shocked you even say that. I could see an individual that ain't in business, but,
I understand something, but paint, 7 years on paint, exterior paint,
yeah, but they said it wasn't thick enough.
oh, well.
I didn't come here to start any trouble, all right? And I don't intend to. But 71% said what is going wrong here. I might be listed as a cave person, but I ain't a third-class citizen. I pay taxes. And I don't think we was gonna get a good deal out of what we was supposed to get, because we haven't got it before, and we won't get it again. I thank you for your time.
I still question how much money, extra money, or how much money we've been spending on maintaining the firehouse. I just don't, I don't see it. I don't think we've spent that much on that building.
But over the years, there was a lot spent on equipment.
Well, that's normal.
Well, that's,
You gotta get new vehicles every once in a while. I mean, that's.
Well, rebuild them, that's what Bloomsdale does.
No, they all got, I think if you check, I think most of the outlying fire departments all got pretty new equipment.
That's because they rebuild them.
I'd be checking on that, Carl.
I did.
Well, okay.
I don't think they'd put a piece in the paper that was lies, would they?
I know what you mean.
Read the Herald sometime.
I read it all the time.
Well, then you read between the lines.
I don't know.
You have to.
Could be.
Look, I expect that you would go for the fire department because you're on it.
Well, yeah.
And I don't think for 1 minute that you haven't even got a right to vote on any of these
He's
things.
volunteer.
I don't gain anything by voting yea or nay.
Hey, who said that?
I did.
Yeah, well, you talk about hollering.
How long have you been on the volunteer fire department?
Back
Even
when-
as
He
a
can't even remember how long he's been on
And
it.
even as a volunteer, I don't consider him liable, able to vote.
Carl,
We're,
calm down.
Apologize,
Yeah, that's.
Mayor.
we're off our agenda here.
Well, the final item on the agenda isn't on the agenda.
I'll still stick to it.
We've been receiving requests for qualifications for engineering services for replacement of the water line on St. Mary's and Seraphim. And Terry and Steve are here to kind of discuss some issues with you, and they have 7 minutes.
Hello, board, committee, wherever you called right at the moment. We did draw up some RFQs and send them out on what the city did, and we got back several firms, several of them very qualified firms. After reviewing the matrix that city administrator performed and the matrix that I performed on those, it was pretty evident that we had two firms that stood out above the others, although one firm had a pretty high score, but I think their size and their ability might have limited them. After meeting with Martin today, we think that we would like to recommend Cochran Engineering to be the firm that the city would start working with for a water line replacement program. So I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. I know that'd be something that'd come up later, but in a work session, if you have, some things to talk about and any questions, we could talk a little more freely. So, is there any questions?
What'd you say, you're just gonna do water lines or water lines in sewer?
Well, this project started out as a budgeted item that we went through in the budget process, and we've selected some water lines that we felt were pretty bad. The one down St. Mary's Road, I mean, we work on that thing all the time. There's a transite line that runs up Seraphim and a few others, and so to fit that into this year's budget, it's only a water line. Well, we're going to present some other ideas in a few weeks, but we need to select an engineering firm to design those water lines. We can't just, on water, you can't just go in and dig them up and replace them. You have to have it designed, then the design has to be approved, and it's a long process. So even if we don't get onto the construction right away, it's hiring a firm or selecting a firm is going to be part of the process that needs to be done. And Cochran is a very capable firm. They got an office in Fenton. They got 3 or 4 other offices around the state. Chris Boone, the owner, he's a very, very capable person, and he has very capable staff. A couple of the other firms, Gonzalez was a very close second, very capable firm. Some other firms as well, but you had to get down to somebody. So, Martin felt comfortable with Cochran. We feel very comfortable with Cochran as a company, and but yes, right now just the water line, just water lines.
Are you gonna look into sewers eventually? I mean,
Well, yes, we're working through those. I mean, me and Martin spoke today. There's so many projects that need to be done. We just got to prioritize them. And so over the 5-year, we did a performo for the rate structure and stuff. And this is just following along with that. The sewer projects that we're working on right now are patching the manholes and spraying those. The city purchased the machine, and we saved, thousands of dollars. That machine paid for itself in 1 year. And now where we would have been spending $20,000 or $30,000 making these repairs, now we're down to like $5,000 and getting more repairs done. So we are doing that as staff, as your representatives. We are doing that. But as far as replacing the mains, we haven't got to that yet. We're still working on manholes, and we probably will for another year or two. We're seeing a great reduction in I&I. I mean, look at the rains that we've had, and I mean, very few phone calls with all these rains. I mean, we've been real diligent. Steve and the staff's been real diligent in taking care of the Point Base area and all those things. So I couldn't be more pleased with progress that I've seen over the last 3 years. Hopefully we'll keep doing it.
Once you select this firm, when do you think you're gonna be like starting on replacing the water lines? Is it this fall?
It's a budgeted item for this budget year.
Okay,
Now,
so it'd be,
to start on it. Now, timeframes and a lot of things come into place, and once the engineers start looking at it, then they might come up with a little bigger plan, and they might come up with some planning, but the engineering work I would have all hopes that would commence and possibly even be completed in this budget year. I mean, we're sliding through the budget pretty quick. June's just right around the corner. October starts a new budget, and so I can't promise the construction being done before bad weather will start, but it has to be engineered. And so this firm's large enough and capable enough to make sure that we stay on track. I'm pretty confident that this firm will be personal enough that they'll show up to meetings, even if they're not on the agenda, just to answer questions and address the public and take care of concerns. I've witnessed this firm working for municipalities and districts around, and that's kind of their MO is Mr. Boone tries to have a representative from his firm at his client's meetings, whether he's invited or not, just because he wants to be part of the community. They're a good company. I'd recommend them.
how about on the job site?
That will be up to the agreement that the city has with them. I mean, they can't just donate time, but they're not going to let us get a bad product if the city has a project designed and then the city wants to pay for them to do construction management or construction inspection. Absolutely, that will be up to the board at the time we decide what the final project's going to be. But yes, they're very capable of finishing it from start to finish and do any engineering needs that the city would have on the infrastructure.
My final question
Yes,
is,
sir.
can you have Steve sometime when it's raining hard, drive up and down St. Mary Road, and maybe him and Dave get together and Martin and try digging that ditch out, because I'm amazed how many manholes is completely underwater.
Those manholes have seals in them with bolts.
I realize it, but still,
You're
you could
absolutely-
dig that ditch out though.
You're absolutely
I mean,
correct.
the people's driving through 2 and 3 foot of water.
I am not sure. I can't speak for Dave. I'm not sure that's the city's ditch.
Yeah, we got, there's about,
Yeah, we've discussed that before.
Okay, I can't speak for Dave, but we'd be glad to assist in any way. I mean, we can set a level up and we can work with them and we can try to do anything we can to get that water to go away from there. But you're absolutely correct. Those manholes are right there in that. We've grouted most of those. Most of those have been regrouted because every one of those were leaking. And we fixed, I think all of
Shingles
them.
all the way down by us, but it doesn't, it just sits there.
I think
Well, the whole ditch along there.
I think that's about it for the meeting,
Full of water when it rains, but,
Thanks, Dick.
any of us.
it's trapped in there, yeah.
Okay, I think we'll go right on into the meeting.
Somehow get out.
Do I want to stand for pledge of allegiance? Pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry,
A little violent there.
you missed all that.
Here.
Alderman Tom Kell.
Here.
Alderman John Stupi.
Here.
Alderman Mike Jokers.
Here?
Alderman Donnie Stupi.
Here.
Alderman Carl Oakenfoot.
Here.
Alderwoman Linda Greenfield. Alderman Teddy Ross.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
We're all here. Thank you.
We have one item on the agenda, which, what is that change order? Yeah, 3923, really is presented as a second reading, and that should be changed to the first reading. That was the one that was changed, or it was tabled. It's under old business. It should be, still be under old business, it's tabled, so it's just gonna be the first reading, okay?
Approve on the agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Martin, I guess we're,
well, I didn't prepare, since I wasn't here until Tuesday, a city administrator's report. We covered in the work session pretty much the issues that I thought needed attention, and some of which will go on the agenda tonight. So I'll be glad to entertain any questions that you have, and we'll have a full report at our next meeting.
I will just say that, and I'm sure probably most of you, not all of you, have seen the newspaper, Senator Blunt was in town, and wanted to get familiar with what we were looking at for the National Historic Site, or National Park, and met with a few people in town, people from the state, and took him to what we think is going to be the proposed area and areas, and explained to him where we stood on it. And in fact, we hope the report is going to be done this summer, hoping we're going to get a good recommendation. And then we certainly need his support along with all the other legislatures to try to get that thing approved as a park. So he was real interested, and I think he's going to be a good ally for us, and hopefully we can get that done maybe by the end of the year. So as far as anything else, obviously we've had some issues on Market Street that we've addressed. We're going to address some of them here in some of the items that are on the agenda. Other than that, I think that's about all the really issues that we had while Martin was on vacation. So if you got any questions.
What's the criteria, like the, I guess, whatever the cable company putting that cable down Market Street?
AT&T.
They dig out sections of the sidewalk. Some got stakes and rope that tape around it, and some been open for weeks. What's the deal there? I mean, you get the same amount of people walking back and forth.
They're working in, they called and said, we're going to be installing this fiber optic cable. And they're working in the right of way where their utility easements. And they asked me if they had any concerns, and I said, yeah, obviously I have a concern about conflict with utilities, and don't punch a line, the hole through any of our water lines. I think they've been working with Steve and the staff to make sure that happens. As far as safety is concerned, they hired a contractor. And there's a hole open over here around the courthouse, and it should have construction.
I drive
but
around there.
It's an OSHA question, and they should be paying better attention to it, but I can't, they don't work for me or us. Other than helpful suggestions, there's not much I can do.
So they're in a utility easement, is that correct?
But the property owner would still be named in a lawsuit if something happens.
They should call ATT, the project owner. Give it them.
Yeah, they caused the issue.
You know, they're liable for any property damage they do, you know, and they gotta repair what they disturb. But as far as construction procedures are concerned, there's not much I can do about it. Although, I too have observed what I consider to be situations that I wouldn't have tolerated when I was in the construction business.
Does the city have any codes against that when people come in or ordinances?
I mean,
I think we might, if they're creating a nuisance, we can cite, we can issue a citation against the contractor. I mean, exposing the general public to that danger without, you say they're not putting any kind of ribbon around it or anything?
There's a couple spots.
Maybe you and I can talk tomorrow.
Okay.
Maybe a few citations and they'll tighten up their operation.
the trucks don't even have names on them.
Yeah, I noticed that.
We can figure it out.
Do they have to have some kind of work permit or?
No, there's no permit was required.
Anything else? Okay, any staff reports? No? Or anything on the signs? Speaking of
Yeah, that would be a committee report, but Teddy probably doesn't know.
Probably not.
We contracted with the company out of Farmington. They have all the material in. I received an email, and they're ready to produce the signs. They were trying to coordinate with Dig Right, and it wasn't working out to call them and say, here's the location. So they worked out a deal where they were going to meet with, or they probably have by now, the Dig Right representative on site, and then go to each of the locations so they knew what they needed to mark, and then they will begin installation.
Is that the sign, etc. or something over there? You know what the name of that company is?
Yeah, I do.
I
Metro
see their
Graphics.
Oh, okay.
Well, we also met with Bill Clappick today from the parish and talked about the trail, ditch, road kind of thing, and we're taking the next step there to try to get something, a real basic preliminary design, and decide how much acreage it's going to disturb. So that's where we're at with that. So. Anybody else? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Lynn.
St. John Community Access Television Board of Directors meeting was April 30th. May's going to be a very busy month for us videoing. I think we have 15 or 31 days we'll be doing videos for different organizations and events and whatnot. We now have 17 videographers on board, which is great. We have a lot of young people getting involved in this, which is really a good thing. They conducted a bake sale a few weeks ago and made some funds to purchase equipment. So I think that's very commendable for these young people to do this, to go out and actually have a bake sale to buy equipment. And they're all volunteers, and they're here working for all of us. So I think we need to pat them on the back. The grant that we went for, the St. John Community Foundation grant we received, which was earmarked for our new TriCaster, which is up and running, and the camera. We're actually working on making a list of our age and the value of our equipment and stuff, so we kind of keep up to date and keep things updated, because as you know, things are always breaking and tearing up, whatever. We also have months left for sponsorship. If you'd be interested in sponsoring, total info, it's $150 a month. It's good advertisement for the entire month. It's on the screen almost, let's just call it 24/7, maybe not quite that much, but pretty darn close. So if you're interested in that, give Don a call. So, as I said, we're very, very busy, and our next meeting is May 28th at 6:30.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, the minutes of April 25th.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And Resolution 2013-22, a resolution of the City of St. Genevieve, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute a property maintenance agreement with Melise de St. Genevieve.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 2013-23, a resolution of the City of St. Genevieve, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute a property maintenance agreement with Guy E. Luttrell.
Move approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution number 2013-24, resolution of the City of St. Genevieve, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute a property maintenance agreement with Michael L. Smelsmith.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Old business, bill number 3923, first reading.
An ordinance approving change order number 2 in the amount of $5,473 and a final contract amount of $172,674 on the contract with CE Contracting Incorporated of St. Genevieve, Missouri for the St. Genevieve Safe Routes to School project. First reading.
Move approval.
Second.
Yes, sir.
Isn't this the one that was pulled from the last meeting?
Right.
Has everything been resolved as far as the sidewalks that this pertains to?
Well, we believe so. We've addressed the issues up to date at this point.
So we're pretty confident that everything's gonna be fine.
Right, right. Yes.
I guess in this price, the engineering, there's engineering in this, right?
Well, this approval, this change order relates to the construction.
I know, but the engineering's included in it. He gets his money. So can you hold some of that up until you're for sure all this is resolved, these drainage problems?
I think on the safe routes to school, they've already been paid everything they were called for to be paid. Is that correct? Do you recall that?
Taylor.
Taylor.
Oh, Taylor, yes.
Yeah.
Taylor's paying full.
The contractor hadn't been paid.
But we can still go back on them if some of these drainage problems ain't resolved? Go back on Taylor?
Well, we still have something on the storm drain issue, so I think they're related.
Are these two projects connected?
They're two separate
So what happens
contractors.
to
The
this
Safe
have to
Routes to
do with
School
the
is
drainage?
funded by a grant from
Right.
the Department of Transportation, the Transportation Enhancement Grant, and it's 100% reimbursement. Covers engineering and construction. The storm drain, and it's being performed by CE Contracting. Storm drain is from general revenue, and the low contractor for it was Clifton Contracting. So they're two different contractors performing work that overlap. And I'll have to tell you, that has caused some issues.
Oh, okay. I was trying to figure out what the connection was.
And wouldn't you say some of the problems we are experiencing is they're both related to each other? Sidewalk created some of it.
Sidewalk contractor says the sewer contractor did it wrong. The sewer contractor says, I did it right. And
Yeah.
Some of the drainage that was coming and the downspouts going into the old storm sewer are now maybe not and have to go through the sidewalk. So you got a relationship there that before it was going into this, directly into the storm sewer, and now it's got to go through the sidewalk. So that's why we're dealing with some of these changes.
So this should be pretty well resolved before the second reading then.
Or is it now? No.
Well,
No, the
He
work
said they're
hasn't,
working on
the work to resolve the drainage issues that have been brought to your
Right.
attention has not been performed, but should be before we have to read this in
Okay.
2 weeks.
Okay.
All right.
That's true.
Okay, I think we had a motion and a second. All in favor of first reading?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Bill number 3924, second reading.
An ordinance creating a pedestrian crossing at 116 South Main Street, second reading.
Motion approved.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, we had to do roll call, sorry.
Alderwoman Linda Broomfield.
Yes.
Alderman Teddy Ross.
Yes.
Alderman Donald Stupi.
Yes.
Alderman Carl Openfuss.
Yes.
Alderman Mike Jokers.
Yes.
Alderman John Stupi.
Yes.
Alderwoman Shauna Zerwin.
Yes.
Alderman Tom Couch.
Yes.
Bill number 3924 now becomes ordinance number 3861.
Okay, thank you. Bill number 3925, second reading.
An ordinance creating a building stabilization and rehabilitation grant loan program, approving the form of program applications and authorizing the distribution of a request for applications, all in conjunction with the redevelopment plan of the downtown St. Genevieve Tax Increment Financing District. Second reading.
Move approval.
Second.
Roll call.
Alderwoman Shauna Zerwin.
Yes.
Alderman John Stupi.
Yes.
Alderman Tom Couch.
Yes.
Alderman Mike Jokers.
Yes.
Alderman Carl Openfuss.
Yes.
Alderman Teddy Ross.
Yes.
Alderwoman Linda Broomfield. Yes. Alderman Donald Stupi.
Yes.
Eight yes votes. Bill number 3925 now becomes ordinance number 3862.
Thank you. New business, bill number 3926, first reading.
An ordinance approving change order number 1 in the amount of $11,500 and a final contract amount of $142,320 on the contract with Clifton Excavating for the St. Genevieve Market Street Storm Sewer Improvement Project, first reading.
So we'll talk about it in the work session.
Oh, yeah, oh, the pipe there
This
on
is
the
the
Ross
pipe.
property?
Right.
So this is included in it, taking it out?
Well, there are two
That's what
options
it is.
here. You'll be choosing alternate number one, which is the removal of the old pipe and the work attendant with hauling it off and filling it and regrading it and getting it back to its natural condition.
I'd move approval.
Second.
All in favor, first reading?
Aye.
Opposed? Would like to, since it is certainly causing an issue.
Move for a second reading, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor, second reading?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, second reading, bill number 3926.
Alderman Donald Stupi.
Yes.
Alderman Carl Openfuss.
Yes.
Alderman Teddy Ross.
Yes.
Alderwoman Linda Broomfield.
Yes.
Alderwoman Shauna Zerwin.
Yes.
Alderman Tom Couch.
Yes.
Alderman Mike Jokers.
Yes.
Alderman John Stupi.
So before they're paid, all these problems gonna be resolved, drainage and that?
We gotta do
As
this
it
change
relates
order.
to the contract, I mean, if it's something that they did.
Yeah, I'm just asking with the engine, if we start having a lot of drainage, we're gonna have some recourse to go back on.
The surface drainage issues that are caused by the installation of the sidewalk and what needs to be done to accommodate those is one contractor. That's CE. This is the underground drainage issue. And we won't pay them
But
for
you
this
said
work
both
until it's
pointing
done.
fingers at each other. on
Yeah,
this
they have
problem.
up to date, but this amount will not be paid until that work is done. And if there's any other work for which this contractor is responsible, we'll get it resolved before this work is finished and make sure it's tended to. I know we've got a question whether a floor drain in a piece of a property on Market Street got disconnected and isn't it was in the old pipe and now it's not draining and we have to figure out why and
Yeah.
see if the contractor's responsible for that.
Okay, thank you, yes.
We have 8 yes votes, bill number 3926.
That was for the second reading. That was just for doing the second reading, wasn't
I moved for a second reading.
it? That's what
And
that
there-
was.
That motion's on the floor.
Yeah.
So now we gotta do the second reading.
Well, I think we just didn't,
Did you
we
complete
just
the
didn't
vote
end up
second?
reading
I
this,
did.
read it the second
Yes, I
time.
know. I didn't read it the second time, probably, but I just called for the vote.
My fault. That was my fault. I apologize.
So we got, it is done.
So we're approved.
You gotta read it.
Okay.
The
And-
title.
Okay. An ordinance approving change order number 1 in the amount of $11,500 and a final contract amount of $142,320 on a contract with Clifton Excavating for the St. Genevieve Market Street Storm Sewer Improvement Project. Second reading.
Motion,
Made.
Carl. Second?
Second.
Okay, now roll call.
Alderman Tom Couch.
Yes.
Alderwoman Shawna Zerwin.
Yes.
Alderman John Stupi.
Yes.
Alderman Mike Jokers.
Yes.
Alderman Donald Stupi.
Yes, ma'am.
Alderman Carl Oakenfoot.
Yes.
Alderman Teddy Ross.
Yes.
Alderwoman Linda Broomfield.
Yes.
We have 8 yes votes. Bill number 3926 now becomes ordinance number 3863.
Thank you. Bill number 3927, first reading.
An ordinance approving a budget amendment to the City of St. Genevieve fiscal year 2013 budget relating to the general fund number 10, department number 18, Welcome
This is the
Centers.
amendment.
First reading.
This is the amended one.
I should've got it last night.
This one you got yesterday, last night?
Mine was
I missed the one.
Move approved.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
in
Okay, public comments, anyone like to address the board? Yes, ma'am. Would you like,
I would like to know,
like,
has anybody been contacted to take up the old storm sewer?
that's what we just voted on that, and yes.
And who will do it? Who will? Sure. And when will it start?
Well, we have to notify now, and as soon as they can get a truck over the driveway, without.
Oh,
They can't come in anything until the contract's.
Anybody else? Any other, are there other business?
We do
Oh, I'm
have
sorry.
another gentleman. When you address that, base, whenever you address that base and drainage problem there on Market Street,
Could you
State your name.
say your name so we got it for the record?
Rick Joggers, I own the home there at 693 Market. Is that the basement you were talking about?
Yes,
The
sir.
water back in, okay, because my renter called and that's why I'm here this evening.
Well, she reported that a drain that had been draining isn't draining.
Yeah, that's,
And I called the engineer and told him about that, and he said, the contractor, I said, did this contractor dig up drain lines and not say anything to anybody? And he goes, no, he called me anytime he found anything. But I suspect what happened here is it was somehow connected, and it got disconnected. So I think what we're gonna need to do is get into the basement and run a snake up it, and figure out where it's blocked,
okay.
and then see what the problem is. I'm meeting tomorrow morning with the inspector from the engineer's office to evaluate that and see if we can't figure out a solution. What I don't know is, did you go by there?
I did this evening, yeah.
You notice the construction, the work on the side of the house?
Yeah, I don't understand.
I don't know who did that.
I had nothing to do with it.
No.
You can
And
see
I wonder
where-
if the gas company do something up there? That's what we're investigating, is
Yeah.
whether the gas company ran up there.
The work on the side of the house was Clifton. They had to raise the sewer line underneath the sidewalk in the edge of the street area. So instead of going further in the street, they decided to go closer to the house.
So they probably disconnected the connection of the basement drain when they did that, maybe.
I don't know how deep the basement is, but the sewer line that comes out of the wall is only 3 or 4 foot deep there. Comes through the wall of the basement, not the floor.
You be around tomorrow morning?
Yeah.
Okay, I want you to be there, because when the report I got was Clifton said, well, I didn't do anything up there. But somebody did something.
Yeah.
Do you have a floor drain?
Excuse me?
Do you have a floor drain?
It's a rental house of his.
Yeah. Actually, there was a foot of water in the basement. It got in the furnace and stuff, so I'm pretty concerned about it. And, you know, we've never had the problem before till the construction, so we know, you know, something went on there with the drainage pipe.
Clearly, something got disconnected.
What's not making sense though, if
The
you're
sewer
saying
in that
this,
house comes out the wall, right?
The sewer does, but there's a drain in the corner of the basement that just drains, you know, the water out of the basement, the seep water and whatever leaks in there.
That would
It's
still
not-
be deeper than the storm drain originally was. Don't know where that would go.
I don't either.
I noticed I drove by there one evening and there, you know, when the pit was open and I seen the clay pipe coming out of the ground, you know, that was up fairly high. I don't know, that drain's probably deeper in the ground than that, you know.
so you're saying the floor drain may have went to the storm drain where the sewer comes out higher than the floor drain?
Yes.
That's what we're guessing.
I do know there was no sewage backing up in the basement, it's just the seep water, you know, backing up in that drain, so.
So she's getting water kind of seeping through the foundation, and instead of draining out as it had in the past, the drain's not draining.
Correct. She's gotta pump it out now, you know, keep it from flooding the basement.
Well, we'll be there in the morning. I know you won't be available, but we'll take a look at it. and see
Yeah,
what we
take a
can do.
look and I'll get in touch with you.
Pardon?
I'll get in touch with you.
Yeah, call me. I don't know that I'll have an answer tomorrow afternoon, but I'll try and get one.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, other business, we have a request from the National Society of Colonial Dames Old House Museum for a temporary liquor license.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anything else?
I do have something. I know we're putting the crosswalk in down by the Bolduc. Is there any way we can do right there at Show Me Shop, like the stop sign, people, I guess the older generation, they just drive right through it. And I was standing there one day and I watched it happen, and Cafe 2 says that it happens quite a bit. Maybe if we put a white line or something to identify that that's like a stop.
Don't we have pedestrian crossings marked
Nope,
there? All right,
nothing.
we can do that. That doesn't require board action.
Okay. And so I mean, it's a heavy, populated area during.
Well, most intersections that we have
there's
designated
nothing.
pedestrian areas. We had a problem because some of the handicap ramps don't line up with where you would put the pedestrian walk. You know, one's on this direction, and one's going that direction, so. And Eric
just
had
put
a
arrows,
solution
like paint
for
arrows?
that, and I think we'll maybe implement that one at that intersection.
Anybody else?
Oh, Mrs. Martin called me. I know we've dealt with her, her issues with the water. She says it's coming into her basement now with all the rain, and it's draining like right down, is that Wiener? I think it's Wiener Street.
Yeah, I'm trying to place the house though.
Going up Fourth Street, Maxwell Hill, the little road on the
I
left.
know what Wiener is. What house is she?
Let's see. Second house on the left, facing the road. If you're going down, I don't know. If
Above
you're going
Fourth,
west on Wiener, it's
turn
the
on
second
Wiener,
house.
and she's
Yeah,
the second
not
house.
the yellow house, it's the other house,
Alright.
so. She's had, I mean, it's been ongoing with this. She called me over the week and was.
Well, Kedding called me, they're getting water in the.
There's a lot of
Kedding
rain
building
coming
here.
through, you know.
I'm getting lots of reports of people who are experiencing water in their basement who hadn't had it before.
And I thought there was like a drain right off that hill. There used to be, isn't there like a drain or a pipe or something there off that, right when you turn onto Wiener, right off the side of that? There's a guardrail or something there. I thought that used to be
Nah,
like a
I was
drain.
there with David Morgan.
Yeah, so.
You remind me of that.
I have a few street issues, maybe tomorrow or Monday I can meet with you, Martin,
Sure.
and go over it with you.
Which would you prefer? You want to do it in dry weather or wet weather?
Well, don't believe your,
One
yeah, don't
pertains to
believe the
wet,
weather
one
thing.
pertains to
Don't
dry,
believe the
so.
weather.
Yeah, don't believe the weather.
I'm
Never get it right.
I'm good tomorrow.
Tomorrow afternoon sometime, maybe 1:10 or 1:15.
Those of meet here at 1:30.
Sure.
Council meeting will move to adjourn.
There's nothing else. Motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
These are things that-